Piano is my favorite instrument, and I can't play anything on it, anything at all, you
So
know?
you do it on guitar.
I, I have no choice.
Yeah, yeah, I get it. Yeah, necessity being the mother of invention. But yeah, I think, yeah, the idea of taking things from piano and being like, there's got to be a way. It's just because piano,
Yeah,
it's in front of you, you can see it, whereas guitar is sitting like this. And, to try and get, the thumb finger independence, it's between this and this as opposed to
yeah.
that.
Well,
Um,
I mean, you got to remember that I started getting that independence when I was a kid, and
yeah.
I started with a straight pick, and because I didn't know that Chet was using a thumb pick, I didn't know about that, and so I worked out how to play some of the earlier stuff like Windy and Warm and Freight Train, Trombone, a few of those kind of songs, and I was doing it like this, right? So I'm playing
Yep.
boom,
Hybrid.
boom, chick with my, sorry, say again.
Hybrid picking, right? Where the
Yeah,
thumb
yeah.
is, yeah.
Sorry, I thought you were telling me to stop.
No, 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 no.
Yeah, yeah. So I was doing it like this, boom, 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 and then playing with my fingers,
Yeah.
and that was all working fine. And then I got a Best of Chet Atkins album, and there he was on the cover with a thumb pick, and I was like, ah, that's it. And the funny thing was, I stood beside my sister on stage all those years. She was playing thumb and two fingers with picks on, playing Hawaiian music.
The claws.
And I never once thought to try the thumb pick.
You ever use the claws, the banjo claws, or is those like I would feel like those would get in the way.
They don't work for me.
Yeah.
Um, I get my sound. Look, here's my nails. Look,
Wow.
I get my sound from calluses.
Wow. Okay, that is
Yeah.
different than I would have thought. So yeah, you're
Yeah,
really
my nails are completely useless. The
wow.
nails on this hand, this is my left hand,
Are longer than on the right.
they're perfect and they're strong and they're
Yeah.
really good. Look,
Yeah, yeah.
but this is my right hand. This
Yeah.
one's worn down
From
completely. Yeah,
yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
from also yeah, because you'll
So
use
this is my melody finger.
the favorite finger is the best one. Gotta have it. Let's talk about Chet Atkins because, yeah, for me, you mentioned
Mm,
just a second ago, yeah, Beatles hooks. And for me, yeah, the entry point into fingerstyle was the record Chet Atkins picks on the Beatles.
exactly.
I think you know that record as well. Like, yeah, that's like
Yeah.
such a game changer record for me as a teenager.
Mm,
I knew about Chet Atkins because George Harrison would mention Chet Atkins and okay, who's this?
yeah,
And then you saw that I like the Beatles. What's this? And that to me is such anybody watching this, we both highly recommend that record. It's a great
absolutely.
entryway into virtuosic, tasteful guitar.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's easy to do, but it's not. Uh,
No. Well, that's the original fingerstyle version of Lady Madonna.
yep, that's true.
And but to me it sounds when I listen to it now, it sounds almost like a classical song.
It's
You know, because Chet played it on nylon.
Chet is
You know.
like that. He is, well, you know from, I mean, just tell me about Chet. Like, how did you meet him? How did that all happen?
Well, well, I was 10 years old, and in those days, so this is 1965.
Yeah,
In those days, I'm in the other side of the world. I'm in Australia,
yeah,
right? But I can tell you that every musician that I met, the name Chet Atkins was on everyone's lips. People were amazed by him.
yeah.
They were like, "Have you heard this guy, Chet Atkins?" And it's like, "Yeah, it's a recording trick, and all that." But people like me, I can hear he's playing everything at once, and it's hard to explain that to people. But anyway, my father passed away suddenly, and I just got listening to Chet's records, and it really helped me get through that sadness, that loss, and my world went upside down,
Yeah.
and Chet's music for me was the only thing I could listen to. And
Yeah.
so I ended up writing a fan letter. And I told him who I was and that I was listening to his songs and I was trying to play like him, and could he send me a photo? And right, so on the envelope I put Chet Atkins, Nashville, America. That's it. Put some stamps on it, send it off, and he got it. And he about 2 months later, I got a big brown envelope with American stamps on it and eagles and all that. In this envelope was a black and white photo signed to me, and there was a letter with the RCA Victor Records headstock thing here,
Yeah.
and it was a lovely letter. And he said he had no idea that somebody so far away knew him, and that he was really thrilled to hear from somebody at the other side of the world, and hope that I enjoy playing, and that hope that I can make my way to Music City one day.
And you ultimately did. I
I
mean,
did.
eventually, and other stories I've heard about Chet are similarly warm, kind,
Yeah,
humble.
absolutely.
Yeah,
If you imagine the back in '66, I mean, he had to have been one of the busiest people in America
yeah,
in the music business. He was running the record label.
right.
He was producing artists, and he had his own career as well. I
Yeah.
mean, when I got to know him and we talked about that period of his life, he just said, "I don't know how I did all that." One day I was working on a Don Gibson record, and I looked down and I had a black shoe and a brown shoe on, and I knew I was busy.
You got to work with Chet very much, I think, near the end of his life.
Yeah.
Is that correct? You had a record. What was
Well,
his last
the
record, wasn't it?
the last record, yeah, the day Fingerpickers took over the world. That was in '96. Chet had just had a operation to take cancer out of his lung,
Mm.
and so he was kind of recuperating, and just taking it slowly. And so he let me kind of drive the ship. Once he rang me, once he'd seen me play live,
Yeah.
that's what changed everything.
Hmm.
And he rang me at home. And when I was living in Melbourne, Australia,
Hmm.
and said, these record company people are very excited about you, and what do you say we try and do something together? And was like at that moment, that's when my life kind of came full circle. We talked about how we could do it, and he made it so easy. He said, I just want you to come here. We'll record everything in my studio, and then we can mix it somewhere else. You can have whoever you want to mix it and blah blah blah. But let's do all the recording here at home. And he said, I don't want you to stay in a hotel. I want you to stay here in the house with Leona and I, his wife. And I said, oh, wow, okay. So he had a little granny flat built in the house, and that's where I stayed. And every morning, like 7:30 in the morning, he would come down in his pajamas and his his cup of tea or cup of coffee,
Hmm.
and he'd tell me stories of his days on the road with the Carter family, and it was like it was the most surreal thing, growing up in Australia and only kind of hearing about this incredible artist. And then I'm in his house and he's telling me stories every morning. It was unbelievable. What I did with the album, if I
Uh-huh.
may just
Yeah, yeah,
tell
yeah.
you, Eric, is I hired a young guy who could program a little. So this is '95. So
Yeah, very
there
early.
wasn't there wasn't any big leap forwards yet in like Pro Tools and stuff like that. There wasn't any of that. There was a computer that you could program, Uh,
Am I
uh,
remembering DAT? Was that the era of the DAT machine, the digital
that's
audio
right.
tape? Yeah.
Yeah, but Chet used everything was analog. He had a 16 track Atari machine, and so what I basically did is we went through the songs. I wrote some of them. He wrote some of them. We wrote a couple together. And we pretty much got an album worth of material together in a period of about a week of playing and trying different things. And then I got this young guy over to program a bass drum and a hi-hat just to give me a good proper click track that was boom,
Hmm.
boom, boom, like that. And then I overdubbed brushes
Hmm.
on and I mic'd up an Ampex phone tape box,
Perfect.
and
All
I
right.
played, yeah, and I played the brushes like Larry London, and and then I put a guide bass part, then some rhythms, and then we did our lead parts, and that's how I put the record together. And when we finally finished, I had to go back to Australia for a tour, and then I was due to come back and do the mix. And Chet, in his um, medical recovery, he was working. He was coming down and playing his parts when he felt well enough,
Yeah.
and he did a great job. He really did. But when I arrived to do the mix, I arrived late at night and I got into my room, and on my bed was his Del Vecchio resonator guitar,
Hmm.
his AKG 414 microphone,
Yep.
and a note saying, I'm at the Baptist Hospital under blah blah blah, all that. You may wish to take the Del Vecchio to mix in case I've missed anything. And I'm glad I did because there's some harmony parts in a couple of the songs where he did it the first time round, but he didn't do it the second. He just wasn't well enough.
Oh, wow.
I had to drop in a few parts and on his track, and that was so hard because you can't sound like him,
No, no, no.
you
I mean,
know.
the
Even playing his guitar with his microphone, all that stuff, you still can't sound like him.
you just
Uh,
played Carnegie Hall with Richard
yeah,
Thompson, correct?
that's right.
Speaking of
That was
hybrid pickers, yeah.
that was last Thursday night.
Yeah.
So um, it's now Wednesday, right?
Hold on. Yes, when we are recording this, it is Wednesday. That's correct.
Yeah,
You know how it is. Yeah. The days just
yeah. So
together. And that was
yeah,
your
so
second time only playing Carnegie Hall, is that right?
correct. Yeah, the first time was Les Paul's 90th birthday extravaganza. It was.
Another one who he is comes out in his playing. Les Paul's, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, a very clever, very humorous kind of genius. I
Yeah,
remember when I saw you play with him at the Iridium, this would have been the early 2000s.
yeah.
He was a very funny man.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Well, the funny thing was when Chet and I were working together,
Uh,
um, Les called one day to talk to Chet. And Chet says, "You want to say hello to Les?" I said, "Sure." And he invites me to come when I'm going to play in New York. He said, "Why don't you come down to the Iridium and play with us and like that?" And I said, "Oh, thank you. I'd love to." Anyway, as soon as I put the phone down, Chet said, "Don't do it. He'll humiliate you." And I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "I went down and played there with him, and he put my guitar out of tune, and he uh, he pulled the cable out. He was just like he said, a real naughty boy on stage." And anyway,
I've seen clips where he does that to, yeah, his guests. He kind of
yeah,
it's a joke and everything. He's
yeah, exactly.
sabotaging them,
Anyway, so
show.
what happened was I decided to go and play with Les. So that my first time there. I arrive in the late in the afternoon, and they're doing a sound check, and it sounds great. And you know, and I'm very low key. They finish the sound check. I set up my little amp, plug in, get a sound. Okay, great. We eat. Then we do the first show, and Les introduces me out, and I immediately engage him and the band in a Django tune, and I go straight into it, and then I feature him, and then you know, then we give the bass player a solo, and then I play a little bit. Then we do one more song, and I feature the band, and then I thank him and I go off, right? So we finished that first show, and as all the applause, as people are on their feet and going nuts,
Yeah.
he runs into my dressing room, and he's like a wild dog. And he says, I know what you're doing. You think that I'm old. He said, how dare you hold back? Don't you ever hold back on stage. When you come out for this second show, he said, you give it hell, you give it everything. And I looked him right in the eye and I said, okay, Les, I will. Right. So he introduces me out for the second show, and I run out there and I go straight into classical gas, and I absolutely blaze through it, bang the microphone and do the whole thing.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
the audience just goes nuts, and they're all on their feet and they're screaming. It's deafening, right? At the end. And when they finally sit down, he gets on the mic and he goes, "Oh, he waits till I'm old to come and beat me up."
Yeah. Clever guy. So clever.
See?
That's
Yeah.
brilliant.
But we became really good
Of
friends.
course. Yeah.
That's for sure. You
I
know.
always wonder, like, yeah, musicians of your level, people who are not like other people, like, because now we're talking about people, like I said, Les Paul, Chet Atkins, Tommy Emmanuel, Richard Thompson. When you're at the level that you're at of virtuosity, is competition even a thing anymore? Or is it just like
Uh,
all freaks of nature and like we all respect
no,
each other?
well, to be honest, I never use the word virtuoso because
Sure.
I never consider myself that. Um, but like we all just fit together, you
Uh-huh.
know. Like I go and play with Joe Bonamassa, and I'm playing a Tele and a Fender amp, and I just fit into his world
Yeah.
because I enjoy doing that. If I get him up to play with me when I'm playing acoustic, I'm going to be the band, and
Mhm.
he's going to go. You know, it's like
Mhm.
the only competitiveness that I know about was between my brother and I when we were kids, and it was the fact that he could play a lot faster than me, you
Mhm.
know, and it was fun. So when I got older and started entering into his arena, I pushed him all the time.
Well, that's interesting because I guess that, and again, for people who watch my channel are people who are intermediate guitar players who definitely feel intimidated by, other people's skills. And I guess, yeah, my reflection on that is this idea that when you get to a certain point in your playing where you're comfortable and you can say what you need to say, you don't
Mm.
worry so much about who's better, who's worse, who's faster, who's slower,
No,
who's good at this,
never
who's good
think
at
about
that.
that.
You're just like, oh,
It's really all about serving the music. You
mhm,
know, that's what it's about. Like when I do my guitar camps and we have a student concert, you know, a lot of them want me to play with them, but they're terrified, and I'm like, there's nothing to be terrified about. I'm going to give you the best support that I possibly can because I want you to shine. This is your time.
oh,
I don't need no stinking grandeur, you know. I don't need any of that stuff, you know. I need to do a good job. And if I do a good job, that's what makes me happy. Simple as that.
That's a big chunk of wisdom right there. The idea that the most important thing is to make the musical event that is currently happening the best it possibly can be.
Exactly. And if that means playing nothing, great.
Exactly. Yeah, that again, I think in this era of social media guitar playing, which I guess I'm part of, yeah, this there's an overly competitive nature to it that people can lose sight that like when you get in a room with other musicians, the skill level doesn't necessarily matter as long as people have good rhythm. You gotta
Mm.
have good rhythm. To make music happen, you don't need all your triad inversions all over the neck. You don't need to be
No,
able to
no.
play
Well,
Caravan at 200
in
BPM.
my greatest need, if I'm jamming with someone of note, like Billy Strings or Brian Sutton or say Stockler Rosenberg, people like that. Those guys really give me such a great time because they're some of the few people who can play rhythm properly and who stay out of the way and who support you and don't slow down and speed up and play all over you. You know, the reason why people play all over you is usually because they're very excited and they want to be impressive. And
Hmm.
I totally understand that.
Hmm.
And there's an element of youthful enthusiasm, that you don't want to quell that too much.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's no thrill like playing with somebody who has all the skills in the world and all the experience, and they know when to do nothing. When I play with Stockler Rosenberg, and he's a Django player, right? He's one of my favorites because if I'm playing the melody, what he plays underneath me is the most perfect thing. It's
Hmm.
so great, and I don't have to think about the time or the groove or everything. He's got it. And then when he plays, he doesn't have to think about the time because I'm holding it down, and no matter what he does, this is where it stays, you know? I always tell people a musician's first job is to be a listener.
Okay, I won't keep you too much longer.
You all right? Take your time.
Well, just to review, for we kind of steered away, but we got the new record, "Living in the Light." It's actually fairly eclectic, and there's some experimental stuff on there too that I really enjoyed. There's
Oh
some
yeah,
things on there that I'm like, okay,
yeah.
that's trippy.
Well, we just released the video for Initiation
Hmm.
25, and that's uh, I only did it once. It's one take, and I overdubbed some drum things on it, but the actual performance and the guitar, like most of the record, they're all one take
Love
because
it.
I was not shooting for perfection. I'm shooting for a feeling all the time,
Get it.
and so what I did is I used two amps side by side kind of thing, and I used a little Boss delay pedal, and I stood right in front of the amps and played in there. You can see it in the video. Yeah, you can see that's the studio room where I was recording, and then I overdubbed some drum things in the control room.